You know, when you become a therapist, you tell yourself it's to help people, and that's the only reason. And as you go through school, what you tell yourself over and over again is this is in no way about me. This is only to help people, okay? I'm only helping people here. And then inevitably, one day you sit down across from someone who's sharing their life story and they're telling you something really important. And you have a moment where you're sharing the most wise thing you could say, and you go, I think I need to listen to that. I think that's really good advice. And I had one of those moments, and that's what I want to share with you tonight, is something that took me a long time to learn that I want to save you some time on. I always tell my kids, much to their annoyance, that if they attend an event, they should have the posture that this could change their life if they let it. And I just want to invite you to do the same tonight, because I think someone in this room needs to hear what I'm about to say. I also think someone in the room hopes that someone hears what I'm about to say. So between all of us, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart and important. And so what we want to do is we want to start out talking about childhood. Now, if you're one of those people who's in the audience going, great, a therapist, how long before he talks about childhood? The answer is, about a minute. Okay, we got about a minute before I brought it up. So I did my best. I tried to wait, but I couldn't. But here's the thing, is we should always start at the beginning. And during childhood, when we look out at the world, it's a big world. And we're small. And we're very aware at that time how dependent we are on our parents. We're not going to make it without them. And we know that. And we don't even know how to communicate. And as kids, we can't really pack up our stuff and say, down the street looks a little better, take care. You can't do that. Sometimes if you've ever had kids, they've tried, and they make it about, 3 houses down, and they're like, I think I'll just come home. And you're like, yeah, you probably should. You probably should. But when we're kids, we look to our parents to tell us who we are. And a great example of this is Tronick's still face experiment. And this is something you can Google if you want to be depressed, but I'll have you save it until after we're done, okay? We'll save the depression until after the talk, because I'm going to try to end on a happy note. But when you see this still face experiment, it perfectly shows what I want to talk to you about tonight, which is this. There's a mother and their baby, okay? And so the baby's in a high chair. And so the baby's in the high chair, and the mother's right across, and the mother's down and is talking to the baby, okay? And so they're kind of playing, and the baby can't talk, and so they're having a good time, and the baby's laughing, the mom's laughing. And then the mother looks to the side, and some weird guy standing there with a clipboard looks back and nods, and she looks back at her baby, and nothing. Nothing. Now, what's true, and I won't do it to you now, is that most of us would be uncomfortable with nothing in about 10 seconds. Right? If I just stood up here and stared at you and had no expression, most of us, even as adults, would have a tough time sitting through that. And so what happens in the research is that the child immediately kind of goes, what is going on here? Like, did mom not get Starbucks today? Did her batteries die? What is going on with mom? And so the mom is sitting and making no face, and the baby's going like, I don't really get what's happening. I don't really get it, but can't communicate. And so what happens next is really interesting, because the baby starts to kind of laugh and play as though the mom is as well, with the hope that the mom would respond. And that doesn't work. And so then the baby gets angry and tenses up and does that thing babies do. If you ever try to hold a baby that does that, and it's like the hardest thing ever to hold them, they do that thing. And they cry, and in the span of about 2 minutes, this baby does anything it can to get connection. And the reason for that is we're all deeply wired for connection. It's what we want. But if we believe we don't get it automatically, we learn to adapt. And if we get really good at adapting, because if your life depended on it, you'd probably get really good at adapting, eventually we grow up into people who call it our identity. And when we do that, instead of just feeling that we're enough, what we feel instead is I'm enough when. It's not just I'm enough. I'm enough when I'm funny. I'm enough when I'm easy to love. I'm enough when I make the call nobody else would make. I'm enough when I say the thing. I'm enough when. And this isn't a talk about, your parents being good or bad parents, because it's perception. But if you learn at an early age that performance is the best way to get love, what do you think you do? You learn to perform, and you learn to give. And you give, and you give, and you give, but what often happens is out of that giving, we don't know how to receive. And our giving gets kind of distorted. Have you ever had someone in your life where they're the nicest person ever, they do all the things, and you try to do something for them, and then they make it weird? You ever had that person? I'm that person, by the way, where you're like, Jason, I thought I was doing something nice, and now I sort of regret it, and I feel uncomfortable and awkward, and I'm like, yeah, my work is done here. This is kind of what I was going for. And the reason is we don't know how to receive it, right? Because we've just gotten so good at giving it. But what happens next is we start to get tired. And if you do this over a lifetime, you end up in my office talking about it. I didn't know that'd be funny, but I'll take it. You end up in my office talking about it. And what you tell me is that you've done it for so long, and you have enough on paper, but you still don't have enough. And so what happens over time is you turn into one of three different personalities. The first one is a server, okay? And the server is the person who says yes when they should say no. The person who goes into every situation just thinking, how can I help? How can I do the thing? You're like, I don't know how they do it. They must be exhausted. They are exhausted. But the thing about servers is a server teaches us to never expect that they would take care of themselves, right? I mean, if you think about it, you don't go to a restaurant and hope to see your server eat. That's not something you do. In fact, I went in the South, I was traveling, and I went to a barbecue joint. I was so excited to go there because, it's Southern barbecue. So I didn't know what to expect, and it's kind of quiet. And so I went in, and I sat down at this table, and there's a man sitting at another table with a mustache and a big rack of ribs and all the things. And I kind of looked at him, and I'm like, I don't really know what's going on, but maybe somebody will show up. And he took a big bite, and there was a little barbecue in his mustache, and I thought, well, that guy likes it. I guess that's like a good advertisement for this. And then he stood up, and he had an apron on, and so he wiped his hands on his apron, and he comes over to me, and he's like, what can I get you? And I'm like, I think you already got whatever you could have gotten me. I think you're good, actually. Because the thing is in that moment, you didn't expect the server to eat. And so could you imagine starving every single day, but working at a restaurant and having to serve other people the food you need? Could you imagine how tough that would be every time you brought a plate out, just hoping it would be for you, but not knowing how to take care of yourself or receive to actually get it? Now, this guy, he knew how to receive, right? He had mastered that. He actually received before I received. So I was very happy. I spared him this discussion. I just let him eat, and I was like, hey, I'm happy for you. I don't know if you're happy for me, but I'm happy for you. But the server gets tired over time, right? Because they give and they give and they give. The next one that we fall into is the saboteur. And I mostly picked this because I wanted to say saboteur in front of all of you as much as I can. So I'm going to say it about 10 times tonight, and it's really for me. It's also for you. The saboteur, however, is a little different than the server because they're the people who look like they have it all together. They give, they're so generous, they do all the things you would want someone to do, but just the moment they get close to receiving love from someone, they wreck it. Right? They wreck it sometimes in big ways, sometimes in little ways, but what they do is they just kind of find a way to ruin it. And the argument could be made that maybe they don't want connection, maybe they don't really want love, but here's what I know as a therapist is that they actually want love just as much or more than any of us do, but they don't know what to do with it. And so against all odds, they kind of become this person that's always surrounded and also always alone, which is the worst. The saboteur almost sees the whole picture, but then they just miss it. One time we stayed at this cabin, and I decided that it would be really fun if we became a family that put together puzzles. It's not supposed to be funny, but I decided that we would be a family that put together puzzles. And so there was a puzzle there, and it was of the lake and of rocks, which I think, why would you put together a puzzle? It's a photo of rocks, but that's beside the point. But we started to put it together because it was there, and as we got about halfway through it, we started to get really excited because we could see, one of the 400 rocks to complete this boring puzzle. And so we worked, and now we're hours into this thing that we wish we could take back, but we couldn't, and so we got down to about the last 4 pieces. And can you guess what happened? Yeah, there weren't a last 4 pieces. We missed it. So somewhere, I don't know who did it, I don't know why they did it, but we almost got the full picture. We almost got the full view, and we didn't. And that's what life is like for saboteurs, is they give and they give and they give, and they get close, and just before they get exactly what they want, it falls apart. They usually go then into a scorekeeper. And scorekeepers are really interesting because they're always paying attention. They're giving and they're wondering if they'll get. The word score, S-K-O-R, is actually a Norse word, and it refers to debt and how they tracked debt in those times. And so you would have a stick, and someone would owe you something, and you would carve a notch on that stick, which I would love to see. You're just sort of carving, you're like, you owe me, and I'm carving on the stick. But you carve it enough, and over time, this stick gets full. Okay, so you get a full stick of carvings, which today is weird, but back then was like a bank or something. And then what they would do is they would break the stick. And if you think about a person who does this, who gives and waits to receive but doesn't get, and they're frustrated, eventually they have that moment where they're carrying around a stick and they're wondering who sees it, and they wonder who's going to take care of it, and they break it. And when they break that stick, what they usually do next is what I don't want you to do. Okay? Because what they usually do next is they bet it all on one person. Right? They say, my whole life, I've given, and I've given, and I've given, and I've never received. And I'm going to pick this one person to make it right. Okay? It's kind of like the time when I was in middle school, and I decided that I wanted to jump off a ramp with my rollerblades. Now, someone laughed. You shouldn't laugh yet, okay? Rollerblades are cool. But if you were wondering if I was popular, now you know. Now you know. So I wanted to jump off a ramp with my rollerblades because I read about it in a magazine. And so I thought that would be pretty neat. And so I ordered rollerblades I could afford, which were these bright red rollerblades, okay? So if I was having trouble at school before, now I was really having trouble. And I had these rollerblades, and I rollerbladed around my driveway a little bit, and I thought, well, this is enough. I'm ready to go pro. And I grew up in Sioux Falls, so I figured Sioux Falls needs a pro rollerblader. I mean, it's about time, right? It's the 90s. We should make this happen. And so I went to my grandfather, and I don't know if he had a grandpa like mine, but he was an intense man who was in or out. Okay, and so I said, Grandpa, I've never really rollerbladed, and I think I want to jump off a ramp and do a trick. And he was like, in. I'm so in. Okay, today that might be a different story, but he was like, I'm so in, I've got some lumber, I'm going to build a ramp, I'll get back to you. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. That was way easier than I thought. I'm not going to ask my parents. Let's just do this. And so my grandpa comes over, not too much longer after that, and he says, I've got great news for you. I built a ramp. And I'm like, man, this is super cool. Like, what does it look like? And he's like, well, it's outside, and it's a 6-foot ramp. And I'm like, oh, you are like all in or all out, right? And so he says to me, well, Jason, the good news is this. You live on a hill. If you go to the top of the hill and you rollerblade down, you should go fast enough to clear the ramp. Okay, and I'm like, this is a great idea, right? This is sounding good. So I go up to the top of the hill, and there's some people from the neighborhood at this point watching, because it was in a time where you had to watch something stupid in real life if you wanted to see it. There wasn't a video that could be shared, so they're like, this is going to be the dumbest thing I see today. I want to see it in real life. And so there's a group of people, and I'm up on the top of the hill, and I want this miracle, right? I want this miracle, because what I know is I've never jumped off the curb. I'm probably not going to land this. But I hope to. So I got my bright red rollerblades, and I'm whizzing down the hill, and I know I look pretty cool. I mean, I couldn't see it, but it was pretty cool. And as I hit the ramp, there was a guy, and I don't know if you ever had this, but like there's a big crowd and you can just hear one person. Have you ever had that? For some reason, one person's voice like carries all the way. And so as I hit the ramp, I hear this voice, and it says, you should have built a smaller ramp. And here's, I mean, it's funny, but here's what's disturbing. I'm not even from the South. I don't even know where this came from. It might not have even been the guy. I don't know. But I was like, you're right. And it's too late. And so what I did is I went off the ramp. And I got some pretty cool air, and I think I did this or something. I was up there for 20 or 30 seconds at least. At least. And then I hit the ground, and I rolled, and I rolled, and I rolled. It was sort of like that car accident thing where they just tip end over end. And I got up, and I'd scrape my leg, and I did that thing kids do when you scrape your leg, and you go, tss, you kind of like turn into a snake for a while. And so no one thought it was cool, right? I went off a big ramp, spilled it, no one thought it was cool. It was my one moment, right? Now, it occurred to me as we were cleaning up the wound that I could have jumped off the curb first. It also occurred to me that we had like 2 steps in our house I could have jumped off. But I wanted to go big. And so I tell you this story because people who give and they don't know how to receive, they do it until they're so empty and exhausted, they go big. And when they go big, they get hurt. And so do the people around them. Because the people around them have been conditioned to think they don't need anything, right? So all of a sudden, they're building the biggest ramp ever, and they're hoping to land it. But they probably won't. And so I want to tell you what to do instead, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's a little bit vulnerable. Because again, this is something that took me a long time to learn. As a therapist, I really like helping people. I feel valuable when I do. I feel useful. And so what I would do is, I'm married, I've got 3 kids, and we'd eat supper, and it would be great. And then after supper would be the time that you have with your kids, where you wrestle around and someone makes, jokes and you have fun and you do all this stuff, receiving love. But if I'm honest with all of you, what I did in those moments wasn't stay upstairs. I went downstairs to my office and I just made calls. So every night we'd eat supper, and my family would stand there, and they'd go, this is the time we have fun, and we love you, and I'd go, I'll just be downstairs. And so I did this for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. I just went downstairs because I was useful, and I could give and give and give, and I didn't have to do the weird receive thing. Until one night, my sweet daughter came down, and she just looked at me, and you know how kids can say the thing no one else will say? Yeah, she just said, hey, Dad, I think it's time for you to come upstairs. I think it's time for you to come upstairs. And here's what I know to be true is that if you're listening to this right now and I'm talking about you, you get it. But I want to pause and just say, if you're the person waiting upstairs for someone to receive, I see you. Because I think it's really painful sometimes to love somebody who won't allow you to love them. I think it's really hard to see somebody give to everybody else but never receive. And so that night, as I took each step up the stairs and finally reached the door, I just stopped for a moment. And I realized, like the door that's hardest to go through is the one we most need to. And oftentimes, what's on the other side isn't a thing to fear, but it's a thing to receive. And so if I could leave you with one thing tonight, it would be to go upstairs. Go with the people who love you. They're waiting. They're wondering when you'll get it. They're probably going to send you this video later. So just go upstairs. Because I think when we do that, we change our relationships and we change the world. Thank you.